The laughter died before it even had time to echo. One moment, Michael Wade was roaring with his crew, tossing cruel jokes about the quiet barista who always kept her head down. 43 seconds later, he was on the ground, knees buckling, breath caught in his chest, wrist twisted in a lock so sharp he felt fire shoot up his arm. He had seen holds like this before in old combat footage, in training clips meant for soldiers. Not in a sleepy coffee shop. Not from her. The woman standing over him wasn't trembling anymore. Her left hand hung low at her side. The same hand with 3 long scars running from wrist to elbow, pale, parallel, carved into her skin like history etched into stone. For weeks, people had whispered about those scars. Some guessed self-inflicted pain. Others whispered about an abusive past. But none of them had guessed this. Michael tasted iron on his tongue. Blood. His eyes flickered up toward her face, searching for fear, for hesitation. There was none. Emma Morrison's gaze was steady, detached, precise. The eyes of someone who had seen violence before and lived through it. The whole shop had fallen silent. Chairs creaked as customers leaned forward, breath held. No one dared speak. No one dared move. Emma glanced at the wall clock. Not at Michael, not at the gasps rising around her. Just the clock. 43 seconds, she murmured to herself, almost disappointed. I really am slowing down. Then, with a push, she released him. Michael collapsed against the counter, clutching his wrist as his crew surged forward. But something in her stance stopped them cold. It wasn't fear. It wasn't bravado. It was the stillness of a predator who had already mapped out every move they would make. But to understand how 5 men armed with intimidation ended up humbled on the linoleum floor of Milford Coffee House, we need to rewind. Not to the fight. Not even to the moment Michael's smirk disappeared. We need to go back to the scars. Milford Coffee House sat just 3 blocks from Arlington National Cemetery. Close enough that the morning mist sometimes drifted down the streets, carrying with it the weight of sacrifice and silence. Every morning, at precisely 5:47 a.m., Emma Morrison unlocked the front door. Her routine was the kind of rhythm most would mistake for simple habit. Grinding beans, measuring coffee, wiping counters. But if you watched closely, you'd see the precision of a soldier preparing for patrol. 23 grams of coffee. Never 22. Never 24. She never placed her back to the door. Never stood too close to a window when the morning light turned glass into mirrors. Her eyes flickered constantly, entrances, exits, reflections, shadows. To strangers, she was just a barista in a gray sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail, quiet enough to vanish into the background. To the locals, she was damaged goods. That's how they whispered it. Poor thing, they'd say, stirring sugar into their cups. Discharge, probably. Medical. You can tell she's seen something. Look how she jumps at loud noises. Look at those sleeves she always wears. They never asked. They just built their stories from pity and moved on. But Emma wasn't flinching from ghosts. She was calculating. Always calculating. The way a soldier counts bullets. The way a survivor counts exits. One man noticed. John Thornton, 72 years old, a Vietnam vet whose hands still trembled not from age, but memory. He sat in the corner booth every morning, watching with eyes that had seen too much. He knew the signs. The way Emma positioned objects within reach. The way her shoulders shifted when certain voices carried military tones. The way her gaze softened for exactly 1 second at 9:23 every morning, when she touched something hidden behind the espresso machine. A ritual. A memorial. He didn't know her story, but he knew enough to recognize her silence wasn't weakness. It was survival. The scars on her arm were the only hints left behind. 3 white lines running parallel, carved with surgical neatness by an explosion overseas. Most people thought they knew what they meant. Self-harm. Abuse. Some tragic feminine fragility. The truth was darker. Those scars were shrapnel. Syria. A roadside bomb that ripped through walls and flesh and swallowed voices forever. Emma had crawled through dust and blood, her teammates broken around her. She had been captured, held for 72 hours, planned her escape, while men with guns laughed in a language she half understood. Those scars weren't weakness. They were survival itself. But society doesn't like its heroes when they don't fit the mold. Emma had learned that. Heroes were supposed to wear uniforms, stand tall, be recognized in parades. Not pour lattes in silence, not sweep floors with their heads bowed. So she built her armor in invisibility. She blended. She measured. She smiled just enough. But inside, the soldier never left. The morning happened. The air felt different. It started as a hum, a low vibration carried on the wind. At first, it blended with traffic, with chatter, with the hiss of the espresso machine. But then it grew. Louder. Closer. Engines. Motorcycles. Multiple. Emma's shoulders stiffened. Her hands paused mid-motion. She didn't need to see them yet. Her body already knew. The sound wasn't random. It was a formation. A deliberate approach. Through the window, she saw chrome glinting in the sunlight. 5 bikes. 5 men. Their leather jackets stitched with symbols of menace. They dismounted with slow swagger, scanning the shop like wolves circling prey. The laughter of her regulars, the construction workers, the office clerks, even the mayor's wife, evaporated. Silence replaced it. Emma set down her cloth, still wiping the counter as if nothing had changed. But her weight shifted. Toes ready. Eyes calculating. Every exit, every object, every angle. John Thornton noticed too. His knuckles whitened around his cup. He'd seen this before, that shift in posture, the calm before a storm. The leader of the crew pressed his face against the glass. Michael Wade. 6'2". Beard like steel wool. Patches of rebellion stitched to his vest. His eyes scanned the room until they locked on Emma. Predatory. Cold. He grinned. Said something to his crew that made them laugh, loud and cruel. Then they walked inside. The door chime jingled like a warning bell. The smell of oil, leather, and arrogance filled the room. Michael swaggered to the counter, his men fanning out behind him like shadows. One blocked the door. Another leaned against the wall. 2 more flanked the room, cracking knuckles, smirking. Emma kept her eyes on the counter, cloth still circling, hand steady. "Well, well," Michael said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "What do we have here?" "Barbie's little coffee shop." His crew howled. The others in the shop froze, waiting, hoping it wouldn't escalate. Emma didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't scowl, just asked in the calmest voice possible, "What can I get for you?" That was when Michael made his mistake. He leaned in, close enough that his breath touched her skin, close enough to see the faint scar under her sleeve. 5 black coffees, he said, sneering. "Think those pretty little hands can handle that? Or will you break a nail?" The shop filled with laughter. Emma turned, measured, brewed, hands steady as stone. But inside, a countdown had already begun. 60 seconds. That's what she would give them. 60 seconds to leave. And when the clock hit 0, the quiet barista everyone thought they knew would vanish. What would emerge was something else entirely. What happens when the countdown ends? When silence turns into fire, and a ghost from the past steps out of the shadows. Tick. The second hand swept past the 12 like a blade. 60. Emma said softly, not to them, but to the clock. No one moved. 5 men in leather. Boots creaking. Rings clicking against belt buckles. The smell of motor oil mixing with fresh espresso. Sunlight stretched a white line across the floor, right to Michael Wade's boots. He smirked. "We're on a timer, sweetheart." Tick. 59. The room breathed in and forgot how to exhale. Paper cups trembled in hesitant hands. A spoon rattled in a saucer and then stilled. John Thornton, in the corner booth, set his cane upright between his knees. Old habit. Old posture. The kind that says, "I remember what happens when men like these test someone who's seen more." 58. Emma kept her eyes on the counter. Her fingers folded a bar towel once, twice. Steam whispered from the wand. She shut it off. The hiss died, and with it, the last of the morning chatter. Michael leaned forward until his breath touched her knuckles. 5 black coffees, he said. Try not to chip a nail. His crew laughed on cue. 56. Emma nodded, reached for the portafilter, and the movement looked ordinary. Practiced. But it wasn't. She angled her body. Left shoulder slightly back. Feet on the balls. Right elbow close. She was rewriting the geometry of the room in inches. John noticed. Of course he did. His fingers whitened around the cane. 54. Robert, tank. Cole slapped the counter. The sugar packets hopped. You hear the lady? We got time to kill. Javier Snake Rios drifted left, where reflections from the window turned glass into a mean mirror. The twins, Daniel and Chris Peters, split the floor with silent agreement. One near the door, one brushing shoulders with a construction crew that suddenly remembered their coffee needed stirring. What would you have done here? Step in? Call out? Or pretend a quiet woman could weather a storm that looked like this? Tick. 52. Emma slid 5 cups beneath the spouts. The machine hummed. She watched the crema bloom, gold under pressure. Her left sleeve tugged back a fraction. 3 pale lines flashed against the light and disappeared again. Parallel. Perfect. Like tally marks etched by fate. Michael saw. His smile sharpened. Poor little scratches. Life rough you up, Barbie? 50. Emma lifted her eyes to his for the first time. No anger. No fear. Only that faint, clinical patience people mistake for softness. You have a minute to walk out, she said. After that, I won't repeat myself. Laughter again, louder now, to fill the quiet they didn't understand. John stood, slow, deliberate. The cane touched tile with a small, precise click. Ma'am, he said, voice steady, carrying just far enough. That watch under your sleeve, does it do more than tell time? Heads turned. Michael snorted. Sit down, Grandpa. Emma didn't look away from Michael. She didn't need to. Her hand brushed the cuff. Steel kissed light. Not a tactical monster of a device. A plain, worn Timex. Honest. Unthreatening. Like the woman who wore it. 47, she said. Michael's lip curled. Something ugly moved behind his eyes. He reached. He shouldn't have. His fingers clamped around her scarred wrist with the certainty of a man who believes strength is force and force is everything. 46. Everything changed in the width of a heartbeat. Emma's hips cut left. Her trapped wrist rolled, bone to tendon to air. She slid under his line like smoke. Her right hand found his thumb, not his hand. His thumb torqued it past its design with a microturn. His body folded. His breath snapped. His knees met tile. A gasp rippled across the room. 43, Emma said, almost to herself, as if grating a drill. Sloppy. Michael swore and swung with his free hand. She didn't block. She wasn't there. A half step. The strike shaved wind. Her elbow clipped his triceps. Nerves flashed white, and his arm died midair. Robert charged. A freight train in boots. Emma reached without looking. Tray off the rack. Up like a shield. The metal rang against Robert's forearm, clean, bell bright. Then she dropped, heel into the peroneal nerve above his knee. His leg shut down like a light. He toppled sideways into a table. Sorry about the table, she said to no one, because silence needed something gentle to sit beside it. 40. Javier's hand flickered near a pocket. The twitch of a man who loves shiny answers. The knife never saw daylight. Emma's bar towel snapped like a whip around his wrist. Twist. Strip. The blade clattered across tile and skittered under the counter. She slid the pitcher from its hook. Stainless steel met sternum with a hollow thud. Air. Gone. Daniel lunged high. Chris cut low. Twins, trained by life to move as one. Emma stepped into them, never back, always in, broom handle from the mop station flashing into her grip. She stabbed the end into Chris's ankle, then levered it up, catching Daniel's knee on the way through. Their timing, perfect a breath ago, shattered. Daniel kissed the door frame. Chris hit the service mat and learned how slippery rubber can be when it doesn't love you back. 34. Michael roared and bull rushed. Pain makes bad decisions. Emma pivoted. The portafilter, the heavy chrome head she'd just locked, became a comet. It kissed his diaphragm just below the ribs. All that noise in him collapsed into a dry, shocked silence. He folded, eyes wide, mouth open and empty. The machine hissed. Steam screamed. Emma opened the wand hair. A thread of vapor, no more, drew a white line between her and Javier's recovering hands. He flinched. She didn't need to burn him. She needed him to blink. He blinked. 29. Robert dragged himself upright on a chair back with that furious dignity of big men who refuse to be small. He grabbed for her hair. She was gone before his fingers closed, pivoting inside his reach. Her palm found his jaw. Thumb behind his ear. Pressure. He sagged. Big men are just men when electricity remembers how to travel. The construction crew finally remembered their feet. One step close, then stopped. Surprise stuck to his boots. This wasn't a bar fight. It was choreography written for survival. 22. Michael swung wild. She let the punch pass, and his momentum carried his wrist right where she wanted it. Z-lock. Step over. Face to tile. Spine aligned with the counter's edge. She did not increase pressure. She didn't need to. He knew what would happen if she did. Stay down, she said. Calm. Like a cashier confirming a price. He stayed down. Javier snarled and reached for the knife that wasn't there. His hand closed on air and guilt. Emma slid the pitcher along the counter and let it drop. It struck the tile by his foot. He looked. She kicked. His calf spasmed. He fell to one knee, hand slapping tile, eyes wide with the shock of being undone by things that shouldn't be dangerous. 18. Daniel tried clever. He grabbed a chair and swung it like a lion tamer. Emma stepped inside the arc. The chair cracked against the counter. Wood splintered. Her forearm slid under his throat with surgical indifference. She walked him backward 2 steps and let gravity negotiate the rest. Chris grabbed for her sleeve. The fabric slipped through his fingers like water. She caught his wrist, turned it, and parked him gently but firmly beside his brother, palms flat, breath loud. 13. Michael wriggled under her hold and found a sliver of foolish courage. He spat a word at her that tasted like sour metal in the room. She didn't react. She simply adjusted a centimeter. His spine understood English better than his mouth did. Someone's phone started recording. Not the first. Not the last. People film bravery when it's safe to do so. You've seen it. So have I. What would you have done? Hit record? Or lifted a hand? 10. John moved 2 steps closer. The cane clicked a rhythm that years had not erased. His eyes were not on the men. They were on Emma. On the exact, disciplined economy of her hands. On the way she checked the door between movements. On how she never faced a window dead on. 7. Emma scanned for knives. Guns. Secondary threats. Exits clear. Windows reflecting. Bar back secure. Her breath was steady. Her hands were not shaking. Not yet. 5. She released pressure in sequence. Javier first. Hands open. Palms visible. Daniel next. Chris. Robert. Stay down, she repeated. Even. Not a threat. A condition. Michael last. She loosened her hold and stepped away in one smooth line. He rolled to his side, groaned, and did not try to stand. 3. The espresso machine clicked. A final drip landed in an empty cup. A single dark that bloomed and held. 2. Silence spread across the room like water. 1. Emma looked up at the clock. The second hand kissed 12. She wiped the counter once, folded the towel, and set the portafilter gently in its cradle. Time, she said, as if a meeting had ended. No one clapped. No one cheered. They only remembered to breathe. The shop smelled different now. Less butter and vanilla. More copper and heat and something like rain before it falls. Emma's eyes did a final sweep. Doors. Windows. Reflections. She touched the underside of the machine at 9:23 without looking. Habit. Memory. A private ritual the room did not deserve to witness. Michael cradled his wrist and finally looked at her with something close to respect. No, not yet. Fear wears respect like a cheap coat. He swallowed. We didn't know. That, Emma said, voice level, was your first mistake. John took one more step. 2 feet between them now. Close enough for stories to recognize each other. He saw the scars properly in the light, the parallel lines that no longer asked for anyone's permission to exist. "Ma'am," he said, and his voice had changed. Softer at the edges. Steel in the middle. Forgive the question. But that timing. Those transitions. The way you cleared space before contact. He wet his lips. Old ghosts do that to a man. Were you, are you? Emma's gaze flicked to him for the first time since the first second. A tiny nod. Not an answer. A courtesy. John's breath left him like he'd been struck. He whispered it, because you whisper names that don't belong to the living world. Ghost 23. The word hit the room like cold water. Most people didn't understand it. The men on the floor did not. But they felt it. Some names carry their own weather. Michael blinked. What the hell is that? Some video game. John didn't look at him. He was still staring at Emma, and in his eyes there was grief and recognition and something like relief. I've been sitting 3 tables from a legend, he said, mostly to himself. Emma's jaw set. A shadow crossed her face. That name, she said quietly, doesn't belong here. She pulled her sleeve down, covered the watch, covered the scars, covered the part of her that had just stepped back into daylight. The door chime tinkled. Every head turned. Outside, a black sedan slowed by the curb. Tinted glass. Government clean. The kind of car that never pays for parking and is always exactly where it intends to be. It rolled past once. Came back. Stopped. 3 silhouettes inside. One on a phone. One in a uniform that didn't need medals to be loud. One watching the door like it owed him an answer. John's hand tightened on his cane. Emma, he said. I see them, she answered. The room understood something without words. The fight wasn't the point. The fight was the invitation. The door handle twitched. Pause. Breath. Quiet. Who's in the sedan? And why does the name Ghost 23 make even the brave go quiet? What secret did Emma carry from a battlefield half a world away that just arrived on her doorstep? The door chime jingled again. But this time, it wasn't bikers. The black sedan outside had parked with surgical precision. Its engine still idled, purring like a predator too patient to reveal itself. Tinted glass reflected the sun, hiding eyes that were surely watching. Inside the coffee shop, no one moved. Not the construction crew. Not Penelope, clutching her designer purse like a shield. Not even the bikers, who moments earlier had swaggered in like kings and now sat scattered across the floor, their bravado leaking away with each shallow breath. All eyes were on Emma. She hadn't moved since she saw the car. Her posture was neutral, her face unreadable, but her weight had shifted, just enough for John Thornton to recognize the old rhythm. Shoulders angled, hand close to cover, knees bent like a bowstring. Emma, John said, his voice low, steady. Who's in that car? Her jaw tightened. People who shouldn't be here. The passenger door opened. A man stepped out tall, silver hair gleaming like forged steel. His uniform jacket was pressed so sharp it could cut paper, and the eagle insignia on his shoulders flashed in the sun. His movements were precise, measured, the kind of confidence that comes from being the highest-ranking man in every room he's ever entered. Behind him, 3 men in plain clothes followed. Their jackets bulged faintly at the hip. Earpieces gleamed pale against their skin. Federal, without question. The man in uniform adjusted his cuffs as if he had all the time in the world. Then he walked toward the door. John's cane clicked once against the tile. He leaned closer to Emma, his voice barely above a whisper. I know that man. Richard Sterling. Intel officer. He briefed my unit before Syria. Emma's face froze, not in shock, but recognition sharpened into anger. He wasn't just briefing us, she muttered. He was selling us out. The words hit John harder than any punch. What are you saying? Emma didn't answer. Not yet. Her eyes stayed on the glass door as Sterling's hand reached for the handle. The chime rang. And with it, the air in Milford Coffee House thickened, pressing down on every chest, every throat. Sterling stepped inside. The smell of his cologne, expensive, cloying, cut across the bitter tang of coffee and sweat. His smile was polished, politician smooth, but his eyes were the kind that never smiled. "Miss Morrison," he said, his voice carrying the smooth authority of practiced deception. "Or should I say, Ms. Williams, according to your documentation." Emma didn't move, didn't blink. "Hello, Richard." His smile twitched, just for a fraction of a second. Enough for John to see the mask slip. "Been a while since you sent me to die for money," Emma added, voice flat, sharp enough to slice the silence. Gasps stirred the air. Someone at the construction table muttered, "What the hell did she just say?" The bikers, bruised and silent, sat straighter. Even Michael, still nursing his wrist, found his voice. "Wait, what does that mean?" Sterling's eyes flicked over the room, cataloging witnesses. His smile returned, smoother than before. "She's confused," he said with rehearsed warmth. "Suffering from trauma, false memories, paranoid delusions. We're here to help her, get her the treatment she needs." Emma's hand slid beneath the counter. The faint scrape of metal onward whispered into the silence. When her hand rose again, she wasn't holding a weapon. She held a small, black thumb drive. It looked insignificant, forgettable, but the way she raised it into the light made it feel like a gavel about to strike. "False memories?" she asked. Her voice cut like glass. "Then maybe you can explain the encrypted emails between you and Taliban intermediaries. The bank transfers to accounts under your wife's maiden name. The timestamp calls that lined up perfectly with our mission window." For the first time, Richard Sterling's mask cracked. His eyes narrowed, jaw clenched. His polished smile faltered. "Lies," he hissed, but it was too late. Penelope had her phone raised high. The red light blinked. A live stream already climbing in viewership. The construction crew leaned forward, fists on tables, eyes burning with sudden loyalty. And the bikers, the same men who had come to terrorize Emma minutes before, shifted positions, their bodies unconsciously aligning between her and Sterling's men. Predators had become protectors. Emma's voice lowered, not shaky, not angry, controlled, steady, like a briefing delivered to a commander who needed every detail. 11 names, she said, and with each one, the shop seemed to shrink. Sarah Thompson, David Chong, Jennifer Washington, Michelle Moore, Patricia Jackson, Amanda Patel, Lisa Anderson, Nicole Murphy, Elizabeth Kim, Maria Davis, Jameson Rodriguez. Her voice caught once, just once, on Jameson's name. Then she steadied. "They trusted us. They trusted you. And you sold them for $40,000. The words landed like hammer blows. Each name painted the walls with ghosts. John closed his eyes. He knew the weight of reciting names. He had done it before in jungles and deserts, at gravesides where the bugle still echoed. Hearing Emma's voice crack once was more devastating than any scream. The room wasn't just a coffee shop anymore. It was a courtroom, a confessional, a battlefield where truth was the weapon. Sterling's men shifted uneasily, looking at one another. They hadn't expected this. Not proof. Not witnesses. Sterling hissed through clenched teeth, stepping forward. "No one will believe you. You're a broken soldier clinging to lies." Emma raised the drive higher, her voice calm but heavy. 3 years of proof. 3 years of waiting for this moment. And you walked right into it. Outside, a ripple passed through the street. Black SUVs, dark jackets, suits with sharper eyes and faster steps than Sterling's team. The FBI, summoned by Penelope's viral stream, swarming with the efficiency of men and women who smelled blood in the water. The first agent through the door didn't even glance at Emma. His eyes locked straight on Sterling. "Colonel Richard Sterling, you're under arrest." The polished officer who had walked in with such confidence went pale. His mask collapsed entirely, leaving only the desperate face of a man who knew his empire of lies had burned down in the space of minutes. Cuffs clicked. His protest spilled out, brittle and frantic. "She's lying. She's delusional. But no one listened. The FBI agents had already seen the drive, already heard the names, already caught the live stream that half the internet was watching. Emma stood still, the weight of years in her eyes, the ghosts of 11 friends heavy on her shoulders. And for the first time in the Milford Coffee House, her hands trembled. Not from fear, from release, from finally speaking the truth she had carried alone. But just as the tension began to ease, a new silence pressed in. The bikers exchanged glances. The construction crew muttered prayers. Even John felt the hairs on his arms rise. Because Emma hadn't moved her eyes from Sterling's men, not the colonel in cuffs, but the agents he had brought with him. They weren't panicking. They weren't arguing. They were smiling. Like wolves still circling, even after the hunter has been caught. Emma's voice dropped, barely a whisper, but John heard it. This isn't over. If Richard Sterling is gone, then who are the men still watching Emma with those predator smiles? And what secret could make even Ghost 23 afraid of what comes next? Silence held. Then the smile stayed. Not Sterling's smile. His head cracked and fallen with the cuffs. These were the other smiles. Thin, patient, predatory. They belonged to the 3 men who'd come in with him in plain clothes, same barbershop, same bland ties, same stance with weight on the right hip, where a weapon rides. Their eyes never touched the badges flashing in the FBI's hands. Their eyes touched Emma. You know that feeling when a dog at a fence stops barking and just watches? That. Agent Sophia Park stepped in front of Sterling as 2 agents guided him toward the door. She wasn't tall, but her presence rearranged the space. Crisp suit, hair pinned without a single stray line, eyes that missed nothing. Colonel Richard Sterling, she said, voice cool. You are under arrest for conspiracy, bribery, and treason. Click. The second cuff locked. Sterling spat words that bounced off her like rain off a jacket. You've made a mistake. Sophia didn't blink. I don't do those. The 3 smiling men didn't move. A faint scent of gun oil rode with them, quiet as a confession. One tilted his chin toward the thumb drive in Emma's hand. We'll take that now, ma'am, he said. Polite. Dead flat. Chain of custody. Sophia didn't turn. You're not FBI. Defense Intelligence Liaison, the polite one replied. A badge appeared so fast it had to be practiced. It flashed. It vanished. Standing order. All material to us. John's cane clicked once. Your badge tan is wrong, he said. The polite one pivoted, amused. Come again. Pan line. John nodded at the man's wrist. You don't wear that badge. You wear a rubber ring you take off when you shoot. And your jacket hang says you carry appendix, not 3 o'clock. That belt isn't bureau or army issue. That's boutique. A murmur rolled through the room. The construction crew bristled. The bikers straightened. Penelope's phone caught every breath. The not-quite liaison smiled wider. Sir, I'm going to need you to sit down. John didn't. Emma watched hands. Not faces. Fingers told more truth. The polite one's middle finger brushed his belt twice. The second man's thumb tapped the underside of his jacket where the snap was. The third, youngest, kept glancing at the front glass for glare angles. Wolves count windows. Agent Park. Emma's voice was calm. These aren't yours. Sophia flicked a glance, fast and sharp. No. Then they're his, Emma said, tipping her chin at Sterling. Or they belong to the thing behind him. Sterling huffed a laugh, as if a chess piece had moved where he'd predicted. You see threats everywhere, Miss Morrison. Emma's eyes lifted to his just long enough to be surgical. Only the real ones. Sophia made a small motion with her fingers. Her team widened, quiet, unhurried. A new geometry cut into the room. The construction crew read it and drifted behind them. The bikers shifted left and right like a gate swinging shut. Ma'am, the polite wolf said again, softer, almost friendly. The drive. Emma rolled the thumb, drive, across her fingers. It looked fragile. It wasn't. 3 years of work could live inside something smaller than a match. 3 years of nights. 3 years of ghosts. What would you do? She asked, and it wasn't to them. It was to you. Hand it over, and hope the wolf learn table manners? Or build a world where even if you fall, the truth still walks? She turned her palm and let the drive slip. Not to the wolves, to the air. Penelope gasped. A construction worker with drywall dust still on his sleeve snatched it without looking at his own hands, then tossed it backward to the bar. The portafilter tray sang as metal kissed metal. Emma's other hand was already there. She caught. She smiled small. Practice was a love language. "I'll give you a copy," she said. "That's all anyone touches." Sophia's chin dipped half an inch. Approval, disguised as gravity. "Copy here," Emma added, tapping the espresso machine, then the underside panel where her fingers always paused at 9:23. "Copy off-site. Copy with counsel. Copy time to release if I go dark." The polite wolf's smile deserted him for a heartbeat. There it was, weather changing on a face. "You think we won't wait you out?" he asked. "I think I outweighted men who used the moon as a clock," Emma said. "You don't scare me." Something shifted in the room. The bikers felt it first, the way predators recognize a bigger one. Michael adjusted his weight, wrist cradled, eyes clear now. "Hey," he called softly to his crew, without taking his gaze off the wolves. "On me." Robert Tank Cole moved to the left of the pastry case, shoulders squared. Daniel and Chris took the right and the back corner, casual as men near a jukebox. Sophia didn't stop them. She didn't need to. Territory was drawing itself. A coffee shop turned into a map. "Backs away from glass," Emma said, not loud, not frantic. "Keep sight lines clean. Close the side blinds halfway. Kill the overheads by the window. We don't backlight ourselves." The construction foreman flicked switches. The front of the shop fell a few degrees darker. Street glare softened. Reflections thinned. Suddenly you could see faces at the glass if someone came close. Penelope swallowed and lowered her phone just a little. Her voice quivered. "Do I keep recording?" Emma met her eyes. "Yes." People listen to rooms full of witnesses. The youngest wolf shifted his stance. He wasn't patient like the others. He was a held breath. He touched his earpiece and nodded at someone who wasn't in the room. A memory opened behind Emma's eyes. A bare bulb. The drone of a generator. Dust in a throat that hated swallowing. Syria. The first blast took their comms. The second cut the building in half. The third, that was the one that drew the 3 pale lines on her arm. Shrapnel scything clean as scripture. 72 hours. Counting not in minutes, but in breaths. Each day scored like a tally. 1, 2, 3. Those scars were a calendar. "Why 9:23? John asked softly, as if he'd climbed onto the ledge of her memory with her. "You touch that panel every day at 9:23. Emma exhaled once. "9th month. 23rd day," she said. "The last message I sent out before the net went black. A ping that said, 'We're late to the exfil.' Someone answered who shouldn't have known our schedule." Sterling smiled too broadly. "Coincidences happen in war." Emma's eyes didn't leave the youngest wolf. "Coincidences don't cash out to $40,000. The polite wolf stepped forward half a shoe. He kept his hands visible. "No one needs to get hurt. We'll log the evidence, and you can give your statement downtown." Sophia side-eyed him. "You're missing your jurisdiction, counselor." "It's bigger than jurisdiction," he said. "It's continuity." His gaze flicked to Sterling, and for the first time he allowed the truth to stand in the doorway and show its outline. Some structures don't fall because one man trips. You ever felt it? That cold draft when a hidden door opens somewhere you can't see? Emma felt it now. She set the thumb drive on the counter. Slowly, deliberately, a small altar. "You want continuity," she said. "Here's mine." She tapped the machine. A soft beep. An ancient Bluetooth speaker behind the pastry case clicked alive. The room filled with sound, not music, not noise. Voices. Encrypted traffic. Timestamps. A man's voice that shouldn't be talking to men he pretended not to know. Sterling's voice. Penelope's live stream caught a clean. The wolves didn't smile now. Sophia let the audio run 9 seconds, long enough to be undeniable, short enough not to burn sources. Then she clicked it dead with a look. She'd made a career out of 9-second choices. "Gentlemen," she said, "step back." The polite one didn't. "You just escalated." "No," Sophia replied. "I just drew a line." He looked at her, then at Emma, then at Sterling, whose cuffed shoulders had crept higher with rage. The colonel's mask was gone. Only the animal of entitlement remained. "You think this is the end?" he hissed. "My wife will make a call you can't block." "Make 10, Sophia said. "I'll wait." The door chime tinkled as a latecomer pushed it halfway before freezing at the sight of all the guns and ghosts. The door drifted shut again. The chime did its tiny duty in a room too full of heavy things. Emma's breath settled into pattern. In through the nose, out through the mouth. She could feel the tremor that always came after. The one she'd learned to hide at the sink or in the stockroom or with her hands under a stream of cold water until the world fit again. John stepped closer, shoulder to shoulder. Not to shield her, to stand with her. "You're not alone," he said. For words, simple as nails, strong as a roof. Michael found his voice. "Say the word," he told Emma, eyes on the wolves. "We'll keep them outside." Emma shook her head. "No fights we don't choose." "Then what?" Robert asked, confused and newly humble, a big man learning a new kind of strength. "We wait," Emma said. "For what?" Penelope whispered. "For who's really in charge to show their face." As if summoned, the youngest wolf's earpiece crackled. He listened. His eyes cut to the window. "Stand by," he murmured. A second vehicle glided to the curb. Not government black. Not anything so honest. Matte gray. No plates. The kind of car that exists only to leave. The polite wolf's mouth ticked up again. Sophia's jaw set. "Inside positions," she said softly. Her team moved as one. The door to the back hallway creaked. The old building spoke in knots and pipes. From the rear alley came a faint metallic clatter, like someone tapping a wrench against a ladder rung. Emma lifted her head. The sound pulled a thread through her. Syria had sounded like that once, right before the lights went out and the room got very small. Do you hear it too? That hinge turning? That moment just before the world changes shape? The front window squeaked. A red dot wandered across the glass and paused on the wall, beside the menu board. Just a second. Just enough for everyone to feel their heart thump once, hard. Sophia's hand rose, flat, steady. "Down," she said, calm as a weather report. The room obeyed. The dot vanished. From the alley, a voice called through the back door in a low, familiar tone that made Emma's spine forget to be steel. "Ghost 23, it said. "Time to come home." Pause. Breath. Quiet. Who owns the voice in the alley? And what home is waiting for Emma if she steps through that door? When the past comes to collect, does she hide, run, or finally turn and lead? The back door groaned on its hinges. That voice, steady, deliberate, still hung in the air. Ghost 23. Time to come home. The syllables dripped like ice water down Emma's spine. Her pulse steadied not because she was calm, but because survival demanded it. Home. That word was a weapon. The bikers looked at each other, unsure if they should bolt or brace. The construction crew shifted uneasily, men who had spent their lives breaking stone, but suddenly found themselves made of glass. Even Penelope lowered her phone, her stream still running, but forgotten in her trembling hands. John kept his eyes on Emma. He had been through jungles where the trees whispered death. He knew when a battlefield tilted. "Emma," he murmured, voice like worn leather. "Who is that?" She didn't answer. Not yet. Because she already knew. Her breath caught, and in that quiet, memory took her. Sand grinding in her teeth. The copper stench of blood pooled under broken bodies. A radio hissing static. And that voice, the same voice, whispering coordinates in her ear 3 years ago. Coordinates that had led her team into an ambush. The back door swung wider. A figure stepped into the light of the service hallway. His boots clicked against concrete with the cadence of command. Colonel Richard Sterling had been arrogance wrapped in metals. This man was something colder. His uniform was gone, replaced with tactical gray, sleeves rolled to reveal scarred forearms. His face was pale, angular, and his eyes were empty. "Captain Robert Kane," Emma whispered, almost to herself. John's head snapped toward her. "Kane? That name's in the reports. Dead in Syria." Emma shook her head, eyes never leaving the figure. "Not dead. Buried in paperwork. That's different." Kane smiled then, a thin, chilling curve that didn't reach his eyes. "Good to see you still recognize me, Morrison. I'd hate to think I didn't leave an impression." The polite wolf near the counter finally spoke, tone laced with deference. "Sir." And that was it. The missing piece. Sterling had been greedy, but Kane had been the architect. Emma steadied her breath. "You sold us out." Kane tilted his head. "I repositioned assets. Strategy, not betrayal. Don't tell me you still cry over bodies. You should thank me. I gave you the chance to be the legend they whisper about now." The words hung like smoke. Michael Wade, cradling his swollen wrist, spat onto the floor. "You set her up?" His voice trembled, not with fear, but fury. "You killed 11 of your own." Kane's gaze slid to him, disinterested. "Collateral. Necessary losses." Something in the bikers shifted then. They weren't soldiers, but even wolves hate a man who butchers his own. Tank stepped forward, broad shoulders blocking part of the aisle. "That's not leadership. That's just cowardice in a uniform." The construction crew murmured agreement. The room was no longer a coffee shop. It was a jury, and the verdict was swelling in their silence. Kane, though, seemed unbothered. He took 2 steps inside, hands loose at his sides. His men mirrored him, shifting subtly, cutting off escape routes. "Hand me the drive, Morrison," he said, tone sharp enough to cut bone. "And maybe I'll let these people walk out." Emma felt the weight of the thumb drive in her palm. 3 years of work. 3 years of blood made data. She set it gently on the counter, the same place she'd poured coffee 1,000 mornings before. But she didn't step back. Instead, she raised her eyes. "You think you've come for me, Robert, but you've walked into a trap of your own making." She tapped the underside of the espresso machine. A hum answered. The Bluetooth speaker crackled. And then the room filled with voices again. This time, not just Sterling's. Kane's voice. Clear. Unmistakable. Authorizing payments. Listing names. Marking the hour his own men would fail to report. The walls themselves seemed to shiver. The bikers froze. The construction workers stiffened. Penelope's phone, still live, transmitted Kane's voice to thousands, maybe millions, of strangers outside. The youngest wolf cursed under his breath. The polite one finally lost his smile. And Kane? For the first time, his expression faltered. "You think this matters?" he snapped. "Truth doesn't win wars. Power does." Emma's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Truth ends men like you." The FBI agents moved then, flooding the shop like a tide. Their weapons were up, their command sharp. Sterling barked protest from his cuffs, but they were ignored. Kane's men twitched toward their holsters, but the room had already shifted against them. Bikers blocked aisles. Construction workers braced furniture into barricades. Even Penelope stood taller, her phone a weapon of its own. "Stand down," Sophia Park commanded, her pistol leveled. "On your knees, hands visible." For a long, taut second, Kane stared at Emma. Not Sophia, not the FBI, just Emma. "You'll always be a ghost," he said softly. "And ghosts never get peace." Then, almost casually, he raised his hands. Zip ties cinched. Weapons confiscated. The wolves dragged away, with Sterling shouting behind them. The room exhaled. The weight lifted, but only partly. Emma's shoulders slumped. Not in defeat, but in exhaustion. The kind that comes when 3 years of carrying ghosts finally ends in a courtroom of witnesses. Michael approached her slowly, head bowed. "We were wrong about you. About everything. I'm sorry." Emma looked at him, at all of them. "Don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for the ones who never came home. Then, remember them." She gestured toward the cemetery through the front window, where white markers stretched into the mist. Section 60. Read the names. Say them out loud. That's how you make it right. The bikers nodded. Rough men softened by truth. The construction crew, too, murmured promises to visit, to carry memory. John Thornton placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. You did what survivors do. You carried the weight until it could be shared. Emma closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she let herself believe that was enough. 6 months later, Milford Coffee House had changed. Veterans found their way there, drawn not by signs, but by whispers. They came for coffee, but stayed for something else, recognition. Emma still measured 23 grams per cup, still checked doors and windows. But now, when her eyes swept the room, she wasn't just hunting threats. She was watching for the broken, the lost, the ones carrying invisible scars. And when she found them, she offered not pity, but presence. A place where ghosts could sit together and not feel alone. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear aprons and serve coffee 3 blocks from a cemetery. But tell me, what do you think? Do ghosts like Emma ever truly find peace, or do they carry their battles forever? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.